Let's talk about the United States Constitution and the amendments to it. It's an important part of law. Maybe it's the most important part of law in the United States. My name's John Bandler. This is what the Constitution document looks like, the first page of it. It's hard to read, but it's nice to see what it looks like. It's the foundation of our government, our country, and system of law. In this video, I'm going to read you an important part of it, and I'm going to summarize the most important principles of it. Let's move it to the side. And here's a much less important document. This is the start of Chapter 7 in my Cyberlaw book. So this is the start of Chapter 7, and I name it just like what it is. The U.S. Constitution and Amendments, the foundation for law and government. I'll have a similar chapter in my next book on Introduction to Law, and I tell what this chapter is about in a nutshell, and I'm going to read you the first couple paragraphs of how I cover it. The U.S. Constitution is the highest law in the United States. It establishes our system of government with 3 branches and a system of checks and balances. It gives power to the government, limits the power of government, and guarantees certain rights to the people. The U.S. Constitution became effective in 1789 and has been amended many times, starting with the Bill of Rights. As our highest law, other laws and actions by the government must comply with it. And that's how I summarized it in my book. Now, if you have seen my other videos relating to law, you know I like to show you about the different areas of law and how they connect with each other. So let's do that now. This green box is all law. Law is for everyone, not just lawyers. That's why I'm doing these videos for you. We all need to know something about law. Now, this blue box is Cyberlaw. Cyberlaw is a subset of all law. That's the area where technology and law intersect. And there's the cover of my book on Cyberlaw, which includes a solid introduction to law, including the chapter I just read you a part of. Now, I'm working on my next book, Introduction to Law. Maybe the cover will look something like that. One way to categorize law is by thinking of 2 important parts, criminal law and civil law. I talk about that in another video. Let's think about where constitutional law might fit in. I'll draw it like this. Constitutional law goes across pretty much all areas of law, definitely cuts through criminal law and civil law. So this is just one way to conceptualize it in our minds to see how things overlap. Here are some factual nuggets to know about the Constitution and amendments. So the Constitution became effective in 1789. It's been amended many times, 27 times in fact. It is the highest law in the U.S. We could say it's the supreme law of the U.S. We can also say it's the foundation of all U.S. law. It's important. The Constitution establishes our system of government. It establishes something called separation of powers, also known as checks and balances. The different branches, the powers are separated and they check each other and they balance each other so neither branch gets too powerful. There's the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch, 3 branches. There are protections against government overreach. In theory, we have a limited federal government with limited powers and other powers reserved to states and individuals. I put that in quotes because the federal government is powerful, but in theory, it's supposed to be limited because our founders were worried about an overly powerful federal government and an overly powerful president. It is the oldest written national constitution still used in the world. We are the oldest ongoing constitutional democracy in the world. Folks, don't take democracy for granted. Don't assume it goes on forever. And there are amendments. The Bill of Rights, that's what we call the first 10 amendments. And then there are other amendments after that. I'll highlight some of the important ones. This is the preamble to the Constitution. It's worth reading. I'll read it to you. You can see it on the screen too. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Within the Constitution are a number of articles. Let's talk about the first three. Article 1 establishes the legislative branch. There's an image of the Capitol. We have a bicameral Congress, meaning there are two chambers. There's the U.S. House of Representatives, there's the U.S. Senate, and Article 1 lays out the powers of Congress. Then Article 2 establishes the executive branch. There's a picture of the White House where the President of the United States lives. The head of the executive branch, of course, is the President, and it lays out the powers of the President. Then Article 3 establishes the judicial branch. There's a picture of the U.S. Supreme Court, and it lays out the Supreme Court and other federal courts. And there's other articles in the Constitution also. In theory, this is a limited federal government. Remember, our founders did not want to live in a monarchy where the government had absolute and total power. So the Constitution provides or specifically enumerates certain powers to the federal government. And if powers are not given directly to the federal government is not supposed to assert those powers. Those powers are reserved for the states or for individuals. One of the most important questions and most difficult questions of constitutional law is how do we interpret the limited words in the U.S. Constitution? People disagree. In any legal dispute involving the Constitution, the lawyer on one side will interpret it one way, the lawyer on the other side will interpret it another way. The judge will have to decide, or judges if it's an appellate case. And appellate judges disagree. Judges on the U.S. Supreme Court disagree. So how to interpret these words is a very difficult question. There's different schools of thought. There's one school of thought where people say we should look to the plain words of the Constitution and look to what the writers of the Constitution intended when it was written. Sometimes this is called founder's intent, or originalism, or textualism. Then there's another way to look at it, that this is a document whose meaning evolves with the times. The question, that old Constitution from hundreds of years ago, can that Constitution be applied to current events and technology? The founders had no idea we would have computers and the internet and all those other things. Can we apply that old Constitution to all this new technology? Well, first, the answer to that is clearly yes, that has been done. But scholars, legal scholars, judges, lawyers debate on whether this is an evolving document or do we just read it according to the original intent. Now, here's another question. Is every lawyer and person consistent in their views, or does it change depending on the result they want? And that's something to keep in mind, that a lot of politics, a lot of law is simply about winning, meaning getting the result you want. So some people who might call themselves textualists or originalists, their view might change depending on the outcome they want in that case. Now, who gets to say what the U.S. Constitution means? Everybody's got an opinion, right? Some people's opinion means more than anybody else's about what the Constitution really means. It is the United States Supreme Court that has the ultimate authority to decide what it means. Their decisions interpret what it means, what that law says. We have to remember, judges are humans. Humans are all imperfect, and politics works to influence the legal system, including the U.S. Supreme Court. We also have to remember politics is not necessarily a dirty word. Politics is part of our government. That's the way things were designed, that people would vote, that citizens would be heard. We need to remember that not everyone in politics or law is right or wrong, and not everyone in politics is good or bad. That said, these are not normal times for law or politics. I'm 55 years old. This is not normal for me. If you're older, it may seem less normal. If you are younger or just tuning into law and constitutional law and issues of government, this may be all you know, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it as the way it should be or what is normal or what should be normal. The U.S. Constitution is a law to try establish peaceful decisions about our country. As Benjamin Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it. Now, we have the oldest written national constitution still in use. Our system of government has lasted over 225 years with mostly peaceful transfers of power between administrations based on voting. But we should not take our system of government for granted, nor assume that democracy and the rule of law is destined or predetermined to continue forever in this country. It takes work, including from a responsible citizenry. Let's look at the oath to the Constitution. In our country, government officials take their oath to the Constitution, sometimes to the office, but never to an individual. There's other countries where they swear loyalty to an individual, but not in this country. We don't have personal allegiance to individuals. Our loyalty is to the country and the Constitution. And this is what the oath of office is, the federal oath of office. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. The Constitution also has amendments, and that's provided for in the Constitution, how to change it when needed. There are 27 amendments total. As I told you, Amendments 1 through 10 are the Bill of Rights. Let's talk about a few of those. The First Amendment limits how government can restrict or punish speech and expression. I'm going to do another video on that someday. The Fourth Amendment limits how government can search or seize. The Fifth Amendment concerns a lot of criminal rights for defendants: grand jury, double jeopardy, due process, right to remain silent. The Sixth Amendment provides for a speedy public trial by an impartial jury and the right to an attorney. And the 10th Amendment gives rights to the states and people. Any rights not specifically given to the federal government go to the states and people. Some other important amendments: the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment made clear that former enslaved people had U.S. citizenship and had rights and equal protection. The 15th Amendment was to ensure formerly enslaved people had voting rights. The 19th Amendment to ensure the voting rights for women. And I've skipped a bunch of amendments. See my resources for them all. Federal courts are often asked to rule upon whether government action complied with the Constitution or not. That's judicial review. If there's a lawsuit alleging that a law or government action was unconstitutional, there are 3 levels of scrutiny that the courts might use, depending on what type of government action it was. The lowest level of scrutiny is rational basis review. The courts will ask, did the government have a rational basis for doing this? If so, it survives. Some issues get intermediate scrutiny, which is a little higher than rational basis, but less than this next level, which is strict scrutiny. So, for example, if the government is trying to restrict the content of people's speech, that restriction will get strict scrutiny. I'll talk about this more when I do my video on the First Amendment. Some important takeaways: the U.S. Constitution is the foundation of our country and our legal system. Citizens should have a basic knowledge of it. It is a foundation for understanding law in the United States. We have this system of checks and balances. That's to avoid one branch becoming too powerful. Our founders did not want a monarchy or dictatorship. Remember, They came from a monarchy. They didn't want that again. No one today should want a monarchy or dictatorship. Citizens need to understand the law, need to support the rule of law, support ethics in government, and speak and vote diligently to serve our country. For a deeper understanding, see my additional resources, including my book on Cyberlaw, Chapter 7. My next book is going to be Introduction to Law. Here are some references and resources. I'll put these in the description. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, or ask if you want to see another video on a topic that interests you. Thanks again for watching. Take care.